Good afternoon, everybody. It is Malik, and I'm going to do just a little informational one here before we jump back into the realistic missions for Hack the Site. Received a white paper today on the top cyber risk of 2016 and how things compare uh, back to 2015. I just wanted to share some of this information with you for those of you who are in security or thinking about getting in security or so this is just one of the papers I got. It has some really neat information on it. So we're gonna kind of go through these real quick, and I'm going to show you 2 pages that are kind of interesting to see. But I want to get through just real quick on where I got this information from and how it was collected. They sent out a survey from Information Week to 300 IT security pros. Just a little survey with a whole line of questions. And of course, their data was collected. And it's the same questions that they were asked in 2015, but they asked 435 in 2015. And they compared these figures to each other. So all this information comes from Information Week. It's called the Dark Reading. So we're just going to take a look at 2015 and 2016. I've got tons of slides that go all the way back, when we're talking about threats and how they've grown over the past 10 years and things like that I'll share with you later. But I just want to show these two. So these are the things that IT security professionals are worried about now. First off, they were asked what are some of their biggest security challenges. And I have these in percentages. And in 2015, 26%, I didn't put all the information up here, I just put the major ones. In 2015, 26% were concerned about outside attackers. This year, 39% are concerned about outside attackers. That's a huge jump in 1 year. Now, actually, look at almost all of these. Controlling user access to data. 23% in 2015 were concerned about it. 34% are concerned about it now. Well, you may think right now, why that huge jump? Because as an IT security professional, we're always worried about controlling user access to data. But what is changing more and more now than what we used to deal with? Now, we dealt with it in 2015 too, but even more so now. We're dealing with more cloud and we're dealing with more outsourcing. Our data is not just sitting in our network anymore. Our data is sitting on public sector side and even private sector side, but by a third party. And there's only so much we can do to handle that information. Now, securing it, there's almost nothing we can do. So this is becoming more and more of a priority. Compliance and regulations, 18% in 2015, 33% in 2016. That in large has to do with, we all know about HIPAA and SOX, and you can name it, GBWA. There's tons of them out there of compliance that we have to deal with regulations that we have to worry about depending on what you're in. PCI DSS, where you got to secure credit card information. So not only do we have to secure it, but if something happens and that data gets stolen from us, okay, not only do we have to pay to recoup that information, but we're going to have to pay a pretty nasty fine for losing it in the first place. So, in which, the fine should be there. It's there to make sure that companies, if they're holding very sensitive information, that they do protect it. So there does need to be some sort of fine to it. But the fine is getting very, very hefty. So more and more companies are worried about compliance. User awareness, it hasn't changed. It's still about 23%, which is still a huge thing when it comes to IT. Okay, they were asked a very simple question. Do you think you're more vulnerable now than you were 1 year ago? Well, in 2015, 15% of the people said yes, they are more vulnerable than they were a year ago. 33% said they're no more vulnerable than they were a year ago, and 52% said they were about the same. This year they were asked the same question. 19%, it's not a huge jump, but it is a jump. 19% said that they're more vulnerable. 29% said they're no more vulnerable than they were a year ago, which is a little surprising that it's that high, but and again, 52% said it was about the same. So then they were asked to go into more detail. Why do you believe you're more vulnerable? And this is probably one of the best slides. In 2015, they were asked, all this is increase. So increase in the sophistication of the attacks. 61% said that's the main reason why they think they were more vulnerable. This year, 69%. Now I'm surprised that number is not higher with the sheer amount of ransomware we have going on now. And I know you've heard of the stories where hospitals have been hit with ransomware and ended up paying the major fine to to get the private key so they can be back up and running again. Volume of attacks, increased volume of attacks. 48% said that was a big reason in 2015. 56% said it in 2016. As of the last white paper I read, which was a couple of weeks ago, there are around 40,000 new viruses written a day. Now, how many of those actually hit, we don't know. But 40,000 a day. There's no way we can protect against that stuff. Use of mobile devices really hasn't changed a huge amount. It only went up by 1%, from 33 to 34%. Customer data to secure. It went from 20% in 2015 to 28% in 2016, and that has increased every single year since 2010. So I think we're gonna continue to see that rise. And mobile devices, they're already inside, so it's still gonna rise, but it's not gonna rise that much. But customer data to secure, we have more and more data that we secure. We hold on to everything now. And here's the big thing, outsourcing and cloud vendors. 15% in 2015, 22% in 2016. More and more companies are going to third parties. They're running their mail servers through a third party. They're running their software through a third party. Software as a service, or platform as a service, or even infrastructure as a service. All their servers are virtualized somewhere on the cloud. Now, this is the biggest jump. Use of the public cloud. 12% in 2015, 22% in 2016. If you're running a corporate network, a lot of your users have a public cloud. Whether it's OneDrive, Dropbox, I could care less who it is. But what's to stop them from storing any of your company data on their own public cloud? How well is that public cloud being protected? That's something we got to think about. Now, big global question they were asked, out of the 300 people or 300 companies, how many had fallen victim to ransomware? 20% of them were hit with ransomware that locked down their entire network. Now, the thing that surprised me was 13% didn't know. And these are IT security, and they don't know if they fell victim to ransomware. I don't quite get that one, but anyway, 20% did fall victim to ransomware. That is a huge, staggering number. What is that, 60? 60 companies out of 300? And the amount, or what it takes to get by, to get back up. Either you're going to pay the money, or you're going to have to restore your entire network from backup. Now, there was a slide in there that 2% of the companies did pay the money to get their system restored. The rest of them just recouped it, just recovered it from their backups. But this could take a company down for a day, 2 days, a couple days, depending on how big the company is, how big your IT team is. Ransomware is huge. Okay, the overall top threats. And this one kind of took me by surprise to see something on here. Cyber criminals, of course, has always been the top. 60% of the people said that was their top threat in 2015. That changed to 63% in 2016. Application vulnerabilities have always been around the 40 percentile. External users, people VPN remote desktops into your network, went from 17% in 2015 to 22% in 2016. But there's some new ones on here, or ones that's growing actually. Look at foreign governments. 15% they considered a threat in 2015. That's jumped to 19%. But look at the last one. Our government. 3% in 2015, 7% in 2016. We can pretty much, even though it happened a couple of years before this, I'm sure the Snowden files had something to do with this. Because it wouldn't surprise me to constantly see this number growing. So, and these are just North American companies that they asked. They did not ask companies worldwide. So, we're worried, 19% of us are worried that foreign governments are going to break in and steal our data. But we're 7%. 7% of us are worried that even our government is going to break in and steal our data. And the 3 overall top concerns. This is the last slide. 3 overall top concerns. Web-based malware downloads. 21% in 2015, 36% in 2016. Because of the sheer amount of malware on the internet now. And of course, with the use of mobiles and tablets and Windows 8 and 10 with the store, malicious app downloads, 31% in 2015, 34% in 2016. And I mean, that's 70% right there. And then compromise of user credentials. It surprised me, in 2015, nobody marked that as a top concern. In 2016, 28% marked that as a top concern. And it wasn't that they won't ask this question in 2015, it's just less than, I forgot what they said, less than 1% said anything, so it didn't tally. So 28% worried about compromise of user credentials, be it encryption keys, the public and private keys, hashes, doesn't matter, just any of their credentials. Cookie stealing. So what we've seen through all of these slides is a dramatic increase in concerns when it comes to protecting a network. A lot of the stuff again points to malware and stuff that our users can download. So all of these come from there, and again, it's all across the board. It's not just from hackers, but it's from the software that we run and the people in our company and even our government. And then all of the sheer amount of stuff that we have to protect. And not only access, but of course compliance and outside attackers and inside attackers and external clients, and I mean, you name it. This is just a ton of stuff that we have to do. You know, I've always explained in my security classes and stuff like that, that in IT, we have a very different job than a hacker does. We have to close every single hole to keep them out. They only have to find one to get in. So life is really, really difficult on the side of an IT pro. All right, now I like to show these I show these in class sometimes. This is actually the Kaspersky one. You can just go to cybermap, kaspersky.com. What they show, this is from their software. We got to get out of tunnel mode. This is from their software. And what they have listed down here at the bottom are things that their software is picking up. And that's what the colors are. So green means OAS. That's an on-access scan. That is if their software picks up malware when an object is opened or when you try to run something. Then there's the red ones, which is ODS. That's an on-demand scan. That's when the user clicks on the scan for viruses. The WAV is a web antivirus, where you go to a website and you'll get the Kaspersky pop-up that says, this page contains malware. That's malware found during a website. There's MAV, which you pretty much got there, is mail antivirus. It's a detection when the message comes in. Now, if the message is saved and then opened, it will turn into OAS, so on access scan. But the antivirus malware, that's the MAV. IDS, of course, is network attacks were detected through Kaspersky. And then the VUL is a vulnerability scan was detected through Kaspersky. That is actually the anti-spam filter for Kaspersky, and bad is just bad data that's being transferred. So this is basically a live showing of what's going on where. And you can click on the continent and it will tell you that here the United States is the #2 most attacked country. And they will give you the numbers. So the KAS is basically spam. So you can see spam is leading the way above everything else. The next one's the on-demand scanned at 880. So you can kind of just spin around and see what's going on. Russia is usually the #1 most attacked country. China is typically the #1 most attacking country. Okay, but that's cybermap.kaspersky.com. Now there is another one out. It's the Norse attack map. I may have taken a minute for this to refresh. This one used to be live. I don't have any more information on it. I heard, I believe it was beginning of this year, that this is really just a simulation now, but it used to be live attacks. It shows different things over here now. It shows the attacking origin, the countries that are doing the attacking, and the attack targets. So you see up here at the top, US is at the top. So we're the #1 attacking plus the #1 being attacked. And it will give you even a breakdown of what's going on. Ports that are being hit, SSH, HTTP, router. And you can do an explore and just kind of break it down and say, you know what, we just want to see US and China. And what if we just want to see things over HTTP? So you can either do it by one or by the other. Because if you pick one, the other resets. Okay. So just an interesting little page that I bring up every now and again. I typically go to Kaspersky because I know that's a live one, and they love to fly down the tunnel and do this topographical scan of the ground. You need if you could show exactly where it was hitting, but they do have a couple of buttons on here for statistics, where it's going to run a line graph. These are detections per second. And then how they explain where all their data sources are. And just some information that you can get on it. blogs. And there's even a widget that you can get if you want to stick it on your page. Alright, so some pretty interesting little pages there. But what I'm going to show you guys next time is actually a site that I take some of my students to. Now, we're going to have to be careful when we go to that site, and I will have a disclaimer in the beginning of it. It's a very interesting site to see some things out there on the internet that are wide open to attack, but this is not a simulation. These are real sites, so we will take a look at that later on. But I hope you enjoyed the PowerPoint and the how things have changed from 2015 to 2016, and I'll share with you guys later on. I'll pull some slides that I have all the way back to like 2008 on how things have changed from 2008 to the present, and things we're worried about now that we never even thought about then, and things we worried about then that's not even on the radar anymore. So some pretty interesting little slide decks if you're in security, or if you're getting into security. So until then, though, hope you enjoyed it. If so, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let me know your thoughts. All right, have a good one. Bye.